There we are. We're live, and Matt should be coming up in a second. Are you there? Oh. Oh, Matt, are you there? Oh, there you are.
I
That's
disappeared.
a minute. It just that's the slowest it's been all day. That's not a good sign. Maybe it's because it's the end of the day.
Later. It's getting tired. Even the technology gets tired.
I know. Excellent. All right. Well, thank you. We've got a couple of people have joined us on the session. So welcome to those attendees. For those of you that don't know, my name's Louise. I'm Chief Operating Officer for EventWell. And myself and my colleague, Helen, who's CEO of EventWell. We have busily been working on the digital summit for the last few weeks, and obviously we've launched today. We've had a great successful day, first successful day, lots of great sessions, and no doubt this session that we're ending on today is going to be another amazing one as well. Just a couple of housekeeping bits and bobs. So obviously, if you're joining us, just make sure your mic is off. And on the right hand side, you will see there's a little sort of chat box. So there's a general chat where you can just make some comments. So if there's anything that either myself or Matt mentioned and you want to just comment on, then by all means put it in there. Participants, you can click on individual people if you just want to have a separate chat with somebody, and then Q&A is if you've got any questions about any of the things that come up throughout the session, and we'll do a bit of a Q&A at the end. But I will stop talking now, and I will pass you over to the lovely Matt Holman. Hello, Matt.
Hey, Louise, thank you so much. And thank you for asking me to participate in this event as well. A little bit of a crossover from where I've been previously, when it's the world that I worked in was more around business travel, but events is something that I've always been, attendee of events. I've been to many conferences across the world, and they're sort of recognizing some of those challenges. So it's going to be really interesting to talk about some of those as this session progresses, of course. Bit of intro to me. I think it's sort of important to sort of understand my motivations, especially when you can see this sign sat next to me, which is about we need to talk about mental health. I think, taking that as the first part of the message, this is such an important summit for discussing wellness and well-being, and mental health is a significant part of that. And for me personally, it does have a lot of sort of impacts in terms of my own world, and to sort of give you an experience of my life from where I've come to where I am now. I know that's sort of part of this session is I spent 20 years in global travel, so traveling all over the world, flying all over the world, and working in travel management companies. So working alongside those people who worked in events, but also in the travel management side itself. I was in sales. I had multiple different roles, different hats, different experiences, like many people do who come into travel or into a domain of travel and work there. And over the course of 20 years, what I found really impactful was the ability to sort of to travel. I loved that. I thought that was great. But at some point it changed. I can't tell you when or how, but at some point my way of seeing travel changed significantly, where I was struggling a lot with mental impact of travel. And I think it's something that's so important to sort of consider, to recognize, and to support people through those conversations. But I never had that. And that was something that hurt a lot. So come the 2016, I suddenly lost a job. And I was, found myself in a very difficult position mentally. And that was something that could have potentially been supported better. It could have been better for me to have more people around me who could have helped me to sort of recover from some of the challenges that travel posed to me itself. But it didn't at the time. And so that was a big challenge for me mentally. I think that taught me a lot. You often hear that people learn a lot from their own challenges, and when I was in that position, it taught me a lot of or gave me a lot of opportunities to reflect on my career in travel, and the way that I was reacting, and the way I was, I guess, how I was performing at events and meetings and when I was traveling overseas. And I think that's something that's really sort of given me this new insight. I come from different perspectives when I talk about well-being, because I'm not telling you about a product, I'm not going to tell you about technology, I'm not going to talk to you about your nutrition or your sleep patterns or your hygiene and things like that. But what I am going to tell you is that as a traveler, and that's the perspective I like to give to the industry of travel, well-being, events, and so on. But as that traveler, as that individual who is impacted by those trips, it can be really, really hard. And that's the thing that I always sort of hang on to, which is I never got supported. I never had anybody really sort of put an arm around me in those situations and sort of check in with me. And I think that's something that's, I'm passionate we need to change. So in 2016, everything was going wrong. I'm very lucky. I've got some very good friends who supported me back. So I had that sort of intervention, I guess, in a lot of ways to stop me from going through the floor. They helped me to come back and to be sort of well and to mentally recover. But that then gave me a new motivation, I guess. What I was doing, I needed to change, and I changed that for the better. So I was able to invest my mental capacity in helping supporting others. And that's what I've been doing ever since. So I now help people through training. I help people through understanding, raising awareness of challenges when it comes to mental health, and in particular, helping workplaces to recognize those risks that exist today. So some people obviously do expose higher risks than others, depending on their personality types, depending on some of their challenges with their own mental health and so on. So these are things that are really important to me. I'm so passionate about this subject. I have many other sort of personal experiences, things that have happened to me over the course of many years where I've had impacts from others, where they've been impacted by mental health and challenges. But I think it's a really important conversation. It's starting to gain much more momentum. Of course, EventWell has been going on for a few years now, and it's a really important one to recognize that every time somebody's moving for work, and that could be just to travel, that could be to go to an event, to a conference, or to a function, it has an impact on them. And it has, what I really think is important is it has an impact on their overall life, not just their work life and the things that they're doing for their employer. And I did a TED talk last year. I was very lucky to be asked to participate in delivering a TEDx talk. And I did this session, and it's called 24-Hour Humans. And what I think is really important for all of us to recognize better is we are all 24-hour humans, but sometimes those lines get really blurred. And sometimes the way that we invest our most valuable commodity of time is challenged, right? We invest it poorly. We behave in certain ways that means that we don't get through the things we need to. We become so caught up in this world of busy, and we think that busy is is an excuse for not doing the things we want to do. And what I do is encourage people to recognize 24 hours is a long time, but 24 hours invested poorly is not great, and we can't get through so much, and we make a lot of excuses. So when I was traveling, and this is sort of the reality of my mental health challenges, and you'll understand this from an events perspective, when I was traveling overseas, and I was going to the US, and I'm based in the UK, when I was traveling overseas, I would often have to work 2 days in one, which meant I was looking after a team in Singapore, a team in the UK or Europe, and a team in the US. So looking after to all those teams in different time zones meant that I was often working from 4 or 5 in the morning till probably 9, 10 o'clock at night, which is an excessively long day. And then if you put in events or meetings into that calendar, there is still work to be done. And I think that's something that we don't always think about. It's that impact of the additional things that people need to do. So actually events, and when I was going to conferences, I just felt like I never turned off. I never switched off from the event. And actually, starting early in the morning and then leaving the bar early in the morning as well was not conducive to a very positive conference experience or event experience. And I think those are all things that we need to improve. But we don't really talk about them, so why improve them when we're not really opening up the reality? I think if you talk to travelers, if you talk to those people that are going and attending these events, who are participating in these sessions, then you're going to hear a different side of the story. There is a lot of positives, by the way, and I don't ever profess that it's all negative, because actually when we talk about mental health, I think what's really important for all of us is to recognize that that can be a positive experience as well. And events do offer this wonderful opportunity to have amazing experiences. And Louise and I were talking prior to this session going live about retreats and having the ability to just switch off. I think that's the thing that we have to engage and encourage much more of, especially in travel and events and everything else, because it's very, very tiring. If you do it frequently, it's going to have a big impact. It's going to challenge you personally. So yeah, so I think across all different sectors, industries, we need to encourage more conversation on this. So that's where we're going to go. I think Louise is coming back in.
Yeah.
So hopefully an interesting, an introduction of, introductions, I guess.
Yeah.
Lots of things.
No, it's a great intro, Matt. Thank you very much. Yeah, giving us your insight and your past. So it's obviously interesting, and I'll pick up on our discussion before this session, before the session started, and I think, as you said, quite rightly say, it's all about educating, our peers, our colleagues, and others in our industry about the correct wording, I suppose, in a sense of what it is that we're organising. I suppose when it comes down to travel and events and things like that, there's a lot of us that are kind of, I suppose, I talk about incentive travel here, but in terms of like a lot of companies are using the term retreat, but actually a lot of these events, is incentive travel events, are not always retreats, because there's still meetings involved. So there's not that kind of, there doesn't seem to be any sort of well-being behind those types of events. So what do you think it is that we need to do to educate these companies a bit further?
Oh, I think, I think that's the biggest challenge I've seen. I've been involved in those incentive trips where, we've been there, but actually the agenda is very much around the work rather than around the rest and the recovery. I think, I think we've got to just engage in a much deeper and meaningful conversation half the time, because, if you're talking about retreat, make it a retreat. If you're talking about incentive, make it an incentive. And I think, there's a lot of people who are fearful of, using those words still. Incentive sounds like there's a financial implication or a individual, which then we go into the other world of taxation and all that stuff, which we don't even want to touch. But I think what we've got to be really mindful of is, first and foremost, this thing about being human first, right? So we need to look after our people. That's important for anybody that listens to this. And I talk about that all the time. Companies need to invest in their people's mental well-being. And actually, as part of that, if you're having a retreat, make sure it is a proper retreat. It's a recovery. It's not just going there for a jolly in the bar, which is traditionally what I was involved in a lot of.
Absolutely.
Which probably was the reason why I had my major challenges. But I'm really honest about it.
Yeah.
I'm not going to pretend. I was having my 2 glasses of water and going to bed every night. That was not the case. So, but that's what we've got to educate, because the problem we've got here is what we tend to do, and this is the thing I see across the industry spectrum of, travel and business and all the elements, is we tend to not realize or not educate or communicate well what well-being really is. I see that. We hear this word well-being, people are going, yeah, but there's a gym at the hotel, and there's a healthy choice menu and great stuff, right? All good. But I always use the thing of saying, but I don't use a gym at home, so what's the point? What does that mean to me? What we've got to try to help people to understand is how to relax and how to stop and how to switch off. Somebody asked me, I did a session at another event earlier in the lockdown, and it was a technology event, and it was technology with travel. And they asked me what technology is missing, and I said it's simple. So we just need we need a button to switch ourselves off. Just turn off all the tech, just relax. So I think we need to define it. I think we need to communicate really well what it is to people and why it will be beneficial. So if you're doing a retreat, fantastic. But what's the benefit for the people in the well-being sense, not the financial gain or financial savings, but in the what's it mean to them if you let them? Because I think that's really important. People buy into that. If you keep telling me what to do and how to do it, I'm probably not going to do it. I'm probably going to round the sides.
Yeah. Do you think that there's scope for, I guess, maybe creating like a course, I guess, going back to education, like, we may all have years of experience in organizing events, whether that's, at home or abroad. But do you think that we should be sending our event colleagues back to basics and really reevaluating and looking at what these events are really about? And also it comes down to educating the client, because obviously sometimes we're the middleman as an event planner or an event agency, and then we're actually organizing the event or the trip for the client. So it's about educating ourselves first and then going to the client. So do you think courses would help? How do you think, what's the best way of getting that out there?
I think there's all these wonderful event briefs and things else, all the different stuff, even the stuff that you've been putting together for this event, I think it does, but I think it has to be a specific element of that, you know, event is the well-being element of it. It's the purpose. It's the, what do we want to communicate to people? And I think, yeah, maybe training. I think one of the challenges you've always got is, as soon as you say to somebody, we're going to put you on this training course, you get three different types of people turn up. You get the ones that enjoy learning, so they're really open to it. You get the ones that turn up because it's an hour out of the office, and then you get the ones who turn up because their bosses have said you need to do this training. You know, so that mandatory requirement element. What we want to do is encourage people to be intrigued by the subject first. Why would it be important for you? Well, actually, if you're selling the event, or you're the person that's booking the event, actually understanding some of that well-being element is really important, because it gives you a deeper and meaningful understanding of what you're trying to do. That's why clients, if they're booking a retreat, they need to determine, what does that mean? Is it a break, or is it a business meeting? Is this, and if it's this, then, you know, if it is a retreat, a pure retreat, great, but make sure that's clear. And then don't have everybody turn up and go, oh, well, I've got you all, let's have a meeting, you know. Or on the, because I saw that happen at an incentive trip I went on, where we were in the restaurant at 8 o'clock. It was like a Thursday evening. And then the senior executive there said, let's meet at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning.
Yeah.
And it was supposed to be, we were going out again, doing more events and activities, and it just changed the whole dynamic.
Yeah.
So, you know, everybody in that all, you know, organization should have sort of pushed back, I guess.
Yeah.
And said no.
No, absolutely.
But we couldn't fight that.
Yeah, absolutely. Have you got any sort of examples of you talked about your TED talk? Has there been other things where you've kind of implemented kind of, I suppose, well-being attributes into other companies? Have you been able to kind of get that message across about the importance of well-being? Because I think at the moment there's a lot of I think well-being is that buzzword, isn't it? Well-being at the moment, and I think there's a lot of conversation out there, especially in these challenging times, about looking after our employees. Do you think that, you know, especially in our industry, that all of our sort of employers should be investing in well-being and looking after employees? And, you know, and it's not just about, you know, doing drinks on a Friday afternoon. It's more than that. So do you think, obviously, there's need for that? And, you know, have you got an example of where you've brought well-being into companies?
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah, so there is absolutely a need for it. We need to do more with it. I think the thing we've got to be really mindful and careful with is there's always this thought of investment in well-being. Actually, a lot of well-being stuff is free. We don't have to invest money into it. It's just a change of our mindsets around what we do and how we do it. And, you know, one example was a client of mine. They had water bottles like this they were giving out to all their members of staff, but what they didn't connect it to was the hydration thing, and how that is a beneficial thing for your well-being, right? Which is such a simple message. They gave these out because they were saving plastics in the ocean. So it's those sort of elements that I think are really important. So why wouldn't you encourage people to say, well, if you drink 2 or 3 of these a day, you're going to have your H2O levels are up, you're going to be feeling very sort of alert, you're going to feel much better about yourself, you're not going to feel as lethargic. So things like that I think are really important in all of this. So one of my clients, so I actually work with Capita Travel and Events, and I'm their head of travel and wellbeing. So I actually work with them on a sort of a part-time basis, very limited days and hours. But the reality is I help them to define what travel well-being looks like. And of course, with event well-being, it's very similar, because travel and events, or Capita Travel and Events, of course, has a massive part which is around the events business. And so, you know, talking to them about how that looks, how that would work, we have consulted with lots of suppliers in that community, in that chain, in the chain, around what they already do for well-being, for them to be challenged themselves. We created the first Smarter Working Wellbeing Awards this year for suppliers, which was around recognizing those suppliers who were doing good things in wellbeing. It didn't mean you had to have it all covered, but I think it was a really important sort of positioning. It was the first time it's ever been done in this area of the industry in particular. And what we're trying to do is challenge the norm. So we've tried to embrace that within the environment of Capita Travel and Events as well. That's been really interesting, because I originally went in there and I trained all their mental health first aiders. So they implemented a workforce or a whole team of about 25-30 mental health first aiders to start looking at their own business, to start supporting their own people, and that's critical. And then they engaged with me to come in and start talking about the external elements of the business, the clients, the suppliers. We're doing some really good work with that, and that's going to continue into sort of the next year, definitely. The other thing, and I think another thing that's really useful to sort of recognize, is when I sort of come back to travel in 2018, I was sort of drawn back in because of this thought that there is a lot of people that are struggling, and knowing that 1 in 4 adults experience mental health problems, all those sort of things, for me was like a real call to, wow, we're doing a lot of stuff that is dangerous. We really are, if we're sending people frequently traveling all over the world, and this multi thing. And then as that progressed, I started to meet up with others very similarly like-minded people around this subject. And we created the Business Travel Wellbeing community last year. So I'm one of the co-founders of the Business Travel Wellbeing community, which is a community of like-minded, similar situational people where we're small businesses. We've got an aspect of travel well-being or traveler well-being or whatever that we look after. Mine just is this one, really, mental health. I can't give you advice on nutrition or sleep and things like that. Of course, I can tell you drinking water is good, but we all sort of know that. But so that's been really useful as well. And we are seeing those sort of progressive points moving forward around more collaboration, more coordination of the content, the discussions, and I think it's been brilliant. So yeah, Capita travel events have been good. I've got some out of industry clients who they've rolled out. I've trained hundreds of people in their organizations, and I just lucky, genuinely, from such a horrible place that I was in to where I am now. It's like a million miles away from here. It's a different.
Absolutely. It's such a shame. I think, most of us, well, those that have been holding events today and sessions, and probably most of people that have been attending the sessions, it's such a shame that, our industry suffers with lack of understanding on mental health and well-being. We've all burnt out, and then we've got to where we are today, which is great because obviously we're boosting the recognition of looking after ourselves, but it is such a shame that we had to go down that road to get where we are today. But it's
a horrible reality, but they say life is a lesson, right? So I think sometimes the only way, and it sounds horrendous, is to experience something and then reflect on that, but have the ability to look back on it and say, what, that's not going to define me, but it's going to help me to then look at others. And that's why I always have this passion for helping support travelers in whatever capacity that is, whether that's going to an event, a meeting, whether that's flying over to Amsterdam for a meeting, or whatever it is. I want them to know it's okay to struggle with that, because you can't just keep going. We can't burn our reserves forever. A lot of people are on reserves already, and maybe this moment has created this opportunity for people to recover. Maybe that's a possibility, But now you've got people who are raring to get out there, and they're willing to break the rules.
I know. And it's such a difficult moment because, as you say, like obviously the current situation that we're all in with COVID seem to be getting worse and worse day by day, both here and especially across in the US at the moment, which is really scary. But it's kind of taken an opportunity for us to slow down and look at day-to-day well-being, but actually we want to get back to work. But
I think we do. We want to do it safely.
Absolutely.
I think that's the key. So people are very mindful. People will still spend money. We will. It won't, from my perspective, it's not going to come back in a massive sort of doors are open and the floodgates open. It's going to staged and slow approach. That's why things like this are really useful to sort of continue the conversations till the physical conversations can really take place, the face-to-face stuff. But I do think, it's going to be a long time coming. And whilst countries are still starting to see some of those challenges, who knows when that will, turn the corner. We only have to listen to the news each day. And now again, it's hard.
It is really, really hard. But like I say, it's given us an opportunity to take stock. But I think also, and I don't think a lot of people in our industry really realize how stressful sometimes our jobs are. And I think this is why we're doing this summit, because we're educating not just people that are already in the industry and have got years and years of experience, but it's also about the people, the students that are graduating, that are coming into our event industry, and actually letting them know before they burn themselves out that it is a stressful situation. You've got to look after yourself. That was the whole reason why we started EventWell in the first place, is because the role of an event professional was listed as the 5th most stressful job that you can have, which was before the role of like a fireman or a doctor, which that astounded me. Like, it's just, you just wouldn't put yourself in that sort of the same role of that career. So I think it's great that obviously it's a good time to educate everybody, and hopefully we can get the message out there.
I think so, and I think that you're absolutely right. It comes with a big high risk attached to it in terms of the mental impact. This environment, this work, this kind of job, and this, but it also comes with a lot of sort of excitement, and it's that sort of learning new things, new cultures, new ways, and new spaces. So I think it will always have that attached to. If we can conquer the well-being challenge of it. The events do take their toll, and over a long period of time they will make a significant impact on how people feel. If we can come up with some sort of ways forward to protect people better, I think that will be. You can't, if the event's going to be running 3 or 4 days and you're on the ground for 6 days, how do you get that relaxation? How do you get that time to be able to do it, especially when you've got live events in play, and you've got people running all over the shop making it work. Really hard, isn't it? You're not going to staff up another dozen people on top of what you already have. You've got very lean margins to be able to work with, and that's the challenge, But I think what we can do better though with that is recognizing when people are struggling, because that's where we fail a lot. It's recognizing people showing those signs or those behaviors that make us feel a little bit, okay, I'm a little bit worried about this individual or this person. And I think that's what we if we're going to invest in anything, is invest in learning more about how to spot those signs, because running around and trying to work 23 hours a day is not conducive to a positive life experience, let alone a job. Nobody should be feeling the strain of that, and I think that's so critical. This sort of event, definitely for anybody that's listening on that, if you are running around 23 hours a day, and once it all goes back into some form of experience, live experience, then it's hard. It's not going to have a long-term positive impact on your mental health.
No. And I think it's all about setting boundaries as well for yourself, and both setting boundaries for yourself, but also making your, I suppose, employer and client aware of what your boundaries are to a certain extent. You're not going to be answering an email at 2:00 in the morning. Do you know what I mean? Like, there are a lot of people out there, event planners out there, that a client will contact you and expect an immediate response, but you've got to have some sort of boundary, and you have to, I suppose, ask yourself, well, if I don't answer this now, is the whole world going to fall apart tomorrow?
Meanwhile, they've gone to bed when you're trying to answer it, right? So they won't respond to you. I find that so frustrating that we're very much this sort of 24-hour always on human thing, and especially when I used to travel, I used to be answering it. I'm by the way, I can't preach this, because I used to be the worst when it came to like I said, I was in the bar, I was partying, I was enjoying myself, running from bed to conference. Well, I didn't even go to bed half the time, but but that's what's going on, and it was hard. But especially when you've got to learn to stop and slow down sometimes, and it's hard. When you take the brakes off people and you let them roll down the hill, they're not going to slow down very quickly, until they hit that baseline where it's going to be hard to come back. We want people that thrive in their jobs, who enjoy it.
Absolutely.
But don't break.
So we're just coming up to the half an hour mark, but just to sort of finish off, I guess, Matt, what would kind of, what should people that are listening to us today, what are the sort of the top tips that they can take away from this session that you would give them in terms of not burning out, and maybe from your experiences, just tell us, whether it's drinking a lot more water, sleep, give us some of your top tips so that we all don't burn out.
Definitely drinking a lot more water and not alcohol. That's definitely not the thing. I know there's a big thing about this, but no, to be honest with you, I think the thing we need to all learn to do better, and this is something that only came when I really crashed, was be able to tune into ourselves, to really sort of take a moment and think about how we're feeling at that time. Because, some people they feel energized, they feel happy, they're really into it, and that's fantastic. But sometimes if you're not feeling that, you might show that to others, but not want to talk about it. I think we first and foremost have to learn to tune into ourselves, so listen to what's going on up there. When we're feeling a bit stressed and pressured, you'll probably see some of those physical signs, maybe tightening in the shoulders, maybe a bit of a dull headache. Maybe we need to hydrate a bit more, because, when we're busy running about, we often forget to do the things that are really good for us, which is, hydrating well, taking rest off our feet. And I just think this is an important element for us learn about our own brains, take that moment to consider and be conscious of what's going on. But when things aren't right, is to adjust. We have to learn to adjust. And sometimes we don't see it, so we don't think naturally to do it, which means that if you've got a team leader or you've got somebody that's supporting you, they could help you with that. And that's what I talk to managers about all the time, or those responsible, is to say, look, you know, this is going to hurt if people don't do certain things. You know, this is going to make it hard. So my tips are, you know, think about how you tune into here. And I use one simple question, which is, how am I feeling today? I use it in all settings. You've probably heard it a million times, but it's such a valuable piece. I also volunteer with Samaritans, which is a listening charity in the UK. And it's always the question we're asking people, you know, how do you feel about this? How do you feel about the situation? And I think what's really important with that is, you know, it's a way of understanding. Because if you start saying, well, actually, I feel tired, then maybe you can start to think about, why do I feel tired? And if you start to go, well, actually, I feel tired because I didn't sleep very well last night. Then you start to a bit deeper into that and think, so why didn't I sleep so well last night? And then you say, well, actually, it's probably because I've got these other million things on my to-do list. And so I didn't have the chance to relax and to do the meditation or to go for a run or a walk or whatever it is. And that's how we can start to tune into our brain. That's what's got to happen. But also other people can ask those questions. So if I asked you how you're feeling today, Louise, you know, you can say, you know, I'm feeling fulfilled. It's been a great day. And I love that. But you might also say to me, if you're feeling honest, you might say, you know, I'm absolutely shattered. And I'm just looking forward to grabbing a glass of water and going for a walk around the block.
Yeah, it's only Tuesday. I should only be on the water today.
But you know what I mean? So that to me is so, I think it's just got to be simple. I don't think we need to invest loads in learning to use our ears properly. You know, I think we can all do it, but I think sometimes our ears is our inner ears of what we're listening to here. That tells us so much about how we feel about the world, how we think about the world, and how we behave. And we need to learn to listen to it. I think that's
listen to ourselves. Well, yeah, exactly. If you're honest to yourself, that's the first sort of hurdle crossed, isn't it?
Honestly, water. Water.
All right, drink water. This is what we're saying.
More, it's so important. Your brain needs to be able to float around a bit.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you so much, Matt. That's all been such good information and good insight to your experience as well. I'm just going to open up to the floor. If anybody that's joined us has any questions about any of the things that we've talked about on this session. Just kind of going to have a look here. Nothing as yet. But yeah, so Matt, also, if we're not getting any questions here at the moment, but if anybody after this session today, or obviously these sessions are going to be, well, they are being recorded, so they're going to go on our YouTube channel after today. So obviously anybody watching, if they do have a question for you, what's the best way that they can contact you?
So they can either come in through our email address. So that's simpler@simpler.com. Nice and easy. It's SIMPILA @simpler.com. Or they can look me up on LinkedIn. So I've got a very active profile on LinkedIn. I do post about mental health and travel and all the different elements of that pretty much every day. Do a lot of polling on there as well, sort of asking questions that are relevant to the right now. The most recent one that I did just quickly on that was around how people feel about coming back to travel. And that was a really interesting and insightful sort of response. And I had 320 people respond to that poll. The fascinating thing that I found from looking at the breakdown of that was it was 50-50 between men and women.
Interesting. Yeah, it's interesting.
And actually, that was across all answers. So one of those, the first one was excited, can't wait, don't hold me back, you know, and then the next one was okay if I have to. One was I need more support, and the fourth one was I don't want to travel. And fascinatingly, there was a big percentage still of people that didn't want to travel or felt very anxious. So, you know, deal with that. We've got to face that on. So those are the sort of put into LinkedIn. I shared some stuff around sleep yesterday, and so I'd be happy for anybody to contact me through there. Give us a follow, reach out for a connection on there too. So more than welcome to. It's Matthew Holman on there. So as the name, although it says Matt at the top, it's with the HE and a W.
Sorry, I've been calling you Matt. Would you prefer Matthew?
No.
Should have asked that at the beginning.
Please, no, don't worry. Matt is absolutely perfect.
Cool.
Perfect. I prefer Matt. It sounds much more cool. No disrespect to Matthews out there, but Matthew sounds like my mum telling me off. So that's what I've always said. Matthew.
Love
Naughty
it.
boy. Yes. So more than welcome. Yeah, if anybody wants to reach out or have any conversations, more than happy to. We have been supporting a lot of people over the course of this sort of lockdown, 4 or 5 months in particular, around the whole discussion of how do we do this, how do we do that, you know, and I think it's always useful to talk to external parties as well. You know, I'm not attached to this industry. I'm not attached to the, you know, yeah, I've got a small attachment to the business travel industry, I guess, but I don't necessarily, that's not my day job. My day job is training, supporting companies, evolving the conversation. So it's been brilliant.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much again, Matt, for taking part in today. And just to all of our attendees, thank you for joining us this evening. Yes, so obviously we've finished day 1 now of EventWell Digital Summit. We've got another jam-packed day tomorrow, so please, you know, join us tomorrow. And as I said before, these sessions are going to be available on YouTube, so if you missed anything, then you can see it there. But yeah, thanks, Matt, and hopefully we'll see you soon. All right.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.